Welcome back, everybody, to Two Guys, Three Crowns, the podcast about what it's really like to live in Stockholm, Sweden. Join me, Sean, and my fellow American Rodney as we explore the good, the bad, and the just plain weird.
Here I am in San Francisco. Oh. Problem is, I don't have a Swedish passport in my hand.
Yes. But you can just come back on a student visa, right?
What happened was
the continuation.
Yeah, I don't really know. People, we did the last episode we did. I was at the hotel getting ready to start my journey, right? And
yes.
we talked about the antigen test.
The journey had already begun. You had left Nina's.
I had left Nina's and my
using
my
all
bag,
the conditioner.
Right, and my bag was on its way someplace. We weren't really sure because it was checked in earlier.
To be seen later.
But I do want to let people know that if you did listen, and several people listened and wrote to me about the antigen test, and how much I really love that test. We might have touched on it. I'm going to make this long story short by saying that when I got my Swedish citizenship, my resident permit gets canceled the exact same time that they issue you citizenship, which means that you have to apply for and get a Swedish passport, which basically then serves as you're a citizen, so you're allowed to be there. But there's been a backup in the system, so it's taking like 4 months to schedule an appointment. I decided that I wasn't even going to try because I had seen reports of people like spending the night in front of police stations just to be the first person in line, and even then they weren't getting their passports. So I'm thinking I have my U.S. passport, and I'll go for it. I mean, what's the worst thing that can happen? So
welcome to the worst thing that can happen.
Yes. Ladies and gentlemen of the audience, I get to Frankfurt and I am getting ready to switch planes, but I have to go through customs.
First of all, Rodney's texting me throughout the morning of his status getting onto the plane.
Right.
And you had gotten onto the plane, you're sitting there, you're taking pictures, texting me, going, no one's checked my ID yet. And I said, wait till you get to Germany.
Yeah. And Sean, you were very right. You were probably the most right you ever did.
Oh, yes.
So I get to Frankfurt. There's not a big line going through customs. I put my passport through the window. He says, "Where are you coming from? Where are you traveling from?" I say, "Sweden." He said, "Where do you reside?" And I said, "Sweden." And he starts flipping through and he said, "Okay, do you have a residence permit?" So I give him the card that
what happened was,
but I know that the card is already no good. I mean, it's like I knew that the card was canceled the minute that I got my citizenship, but I'm going with it. I'm thinking I could play dumb or whatever, but I give the card. So he looks at the card, he scans it, he looks at me and he said, "Was this stolen?" And I was like, "Not to my knowledge." And he said, "Okay, because there's something wrong with it in the system." And I had two ways to go here. I'm thinking, okay, do we go with the
it's
bullshit
either paperwork
that I've been,
or there's probes involved.
Yeah, involved, right. But I'm thinking, do I use some magic bullshit that I've been perfecting over the last 54 years of my life, or do I go the straight and narrow and just think that everything's going to work out? I opt to go honest. So I look at the guy and I said, what happened was I got my citizenship. I have the paper right here. It says, "Congratulations, you're now a citizen." It doesn't say a whole lot more than that.
Mm-hmm.
And then it just became, from there, it just kind of, he had no clue what to do. He said, "I need you to stand over there and wait until we figure this out." So there are three lines, and I'm standing in between a line. I'm like my own little island. It was all of a sudden I was the nation of Rodney
Now,
standing.
for the audience at home, this is when Rodney, in the area where the customs line,
Yeah,
where there's signs everywhere saying no phones, no pictures, decides to
right.
take out his phone and take a picture of his feet standing inside a very narrow yellow box. And I'm like,
Right.
dude, you got to put that
Yeah,
phone away.
messing with the, yeah, I was definitely pulling the tiger's tail.
I mean, you haven't
Uh,
even made it into the little room yet, and you're
no,
already pushing buttons.
pushing buttons, yeah. But I'm standing there waiting. There are people walking by in line. They're looking at me. I'm like, "Oh no, go ahead. I'm waiting." As people pass by, they're kind of looking at me because everybody wants to know that's been standing in line why I'm standing in my little penalty box and not moving.
And when you go through this section of the airport in Frankfurt, there's pictures everywhere of all the top 10 most wanted men on Interpol. So everyone's like, "Man, that guy looks like that guy, right? Like he kind of, he kind of looks like he could
Exactly.
pass for that."
I'm like putting on my baseball cap and putting my head down, a little bit, but
A
but
gray hoodie
I
and aviators.
I was I was nervous and I wasn't really sure. I kept on thinking, what's the worst thing that can happen? And I'm thinking the worst thing that can happen is that they send me like back to Sweden. I'm not thinking I'm going to get arrested
Would
because
they though?
I don't know. I didn't know what to expect. I was going to Google it, but again, I'm in a no phone zone. Um, but
I
he's
know.
like
The most
calling, yeah,
inconvenient thing.
yeah. And he says to me, he's like, "You need to wait over there. I have to call a manager," or he has to call his superior. And so I stood there, and after about a half hour,
Oh.
I'm looking at my watch, and I'm trying to do because I have no clue how far it is to the gate.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just thinking, okay, I still have time, boarding,
And
but
flying
that,
to America, there's two more gates you have to go through
yeah,
of security to
yeah,
get to that plane.
and the clock is ticking, and he's like,
Yep.
"When does your flight board?" And I tell him, in about 40 minutes. He said, "Don't worry, you'll make your flight." So I relaxed a little bit because I'm thinking, okay, he's gonna let me go. Maybe he likes
Well,
me
relaxed
enough
or
to.
like slightly unclenched.
Well, I'm thinking that maybe he does one of those things where he winks at me and then he like reaches for his coffee long enough for me to sneak by. But
This
he
is
had two.
Germany, not Miami, man.
Yeah, and the two other guys sitting next to him were drinking coffee and were very awake and very aware. So, but eventually, superior guys came. They took a look and they talked and they looked at my card, and then he looks at me and he's like, "We're gonna keep this card." And I'm thinking, "Hey, you can keep whatever you want as long as I get on my plane to the United States."
Yeah.
So I did. I got through. I got to the gate like 5 minutes before it started boarding.
Oh.
Yeah, and got on the plane. And once I was on the plane, then I knew that I was at least going to make it one way. Um, I figured as long as I get to San Francisco, I'll figure out the rest. When I get there. Um, Now, and I'm skipping a little bit ahead, but this is tied into I haven't shown my COVID shot papers. I haven't shown either one of my antigen tests.
No one looks at it.
Um,
Nobody.
no, so the whole trip, nobody ever looked at any of that stuff.
No.
And when I got to San Francisco, and I'm not sure how many people. I don't know if you've seen it, but there's an app that you can download to your phone if you're an American citizen, and you can do like the little entry into the United States about $10,000 in cash. You're not bringing
Oh,
this. You're
yeah,
not
yeah,
bringing.
yeah.
There's
You
like five
fill
questions.
out the form ahead of time.
Yeah, but you do it in this app, and you take a picture yourself, and then you click activate, and it's valid for like 6 hours. So what that allows you to do, and people either know about it or they don't know about it, but let me tell you, I've used this thing 3 times. You were in an express line. It was me and 3 other people. When I looked to the left, there was probably 90 people, going
Oh,
through the maze. So if you have a chance to I mean, that thing saved me so much time.
yeah. The
It
problem I
was,
have though is I'm traveling with someone who's a non-citizen,
yeah.
so they're always going to send us through. Like
Oh, you
sometimes she
gotta go
gets to
right.
come with me and Dylan through the
Right.
American citizen line, and that's what
Yeah.
ran us into problems last time. Is they were like, "No, you go with the immigrants now," and I'm like, "What?"
Right. Yeah.
Because everyone was in a bad mood. The second you
Yeah. Yeah.
landed, everyone's just in a bad mood.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
oh, great, we're back in the
And,
TSA land.
right. And you're looking at Hinata going, great, thanks a million. Here we go. A little bit of guilt.
You give the
Um,
side eye.
yeah. Yeah. But I made it here, hopped on the train out to Mom's. Her and a friend picked me up, and it's been a good visit. I've had I've had challenges. I feel like I lost a day somewhere, and I don't know if it's because of all the stress that I went through going through Frankfurt, but I've had a really hard time keeping track of days this time.
Oh,
I've
yeah.
lost one someplace, and I'll probably get it back right before I leave. Uh, just to let you know, while I was on the plane, before we even landed, I wrote to the Swedish embassy. I wrote to the Swedish embassy in San Francisco, explained to them in this email what had happened. By the time I landed, I had received a reply. So on Thursday, I go to the U.S. or the Swedish embassy in San Francisco to pick up a
Okay.
temporary passport for my
And
trip
thank
back.
God there's a Swedish embassy in San Francisco. It's at
Yeah,
least somewhat
usually,
local, you know?
yeah, because usually people have to go, for a while, you had to go to like Washington or New York if you
Yeah,
wanted to go to the
I know.
Swedish. Yeah. But so we'll see. I have a feeling that this tale will continue to some extent afterwards. But tell
Well,
me
I
about your
mean,
trip.
the Swedish embassy has to at least give you a piece of paper saying, yes, this is a Swedish embassy. It's been notarized or something, like
Right,
his passport, like, because there's always one person in charge of it, like my residence permit, that
right.
like goes on sick leave forever. And you're just like,
Yeah,
bro, there's how many people work there? Two?
yeah, exactly. Was the other guy off?
Yeah.
Um,
Well, it has been Easter holiday this weekend.
yeah. But it is, and I think that this temporary passport or piece of paper, if
Yeah.
I understood it correctly, it's basically a piece of paper. I
Yeah.
went down to UPS store, took passport photos, so I have that. I brought my citizenship letter, so I have all the stuff that I'm going to do. $200. It's
Yeah,
going
that
to
sounds
cost
about
me.
right. That sounds about right.
Yeah,
For one of
and
those rush,
and
because when they used to do rush passports, it was about like that kind of thing. And I remember
yeah,
I had to renew when I went to, I think it was when I went to Brazil for the first time. I had to do in Miami, I had to expedite my new passport
mm,
because it was going to, with the 6-month window and all that, they wanted to, the
right,
validity and all that kind of thing. So I had to express process it, and then I had to go to the Brazilian consulate in Miami and take $100 cash,
yeah,
American US dollars, and put it into
right.
a machine to pay the the Brazilian government for my visa. And I'm like, am I money laundering right now? Like, this seems real weird.
Right. It's
Like,
just like, here, stick it into
like
my back
I should
pocket.
just like
Right.
take my paperwork and my passport and then like a check and then
Yeah.
put it in a little envelope and pass it through a window, not like take the money and directly deposit it into God knows what account of the Bank of Brazil. I'm like, what is this going for? I don't want to know.
Yeah.
I don't want to know. Just
Yeah.
give me my
Yeah.
visa.
You're gonna get like a thank you letter from somebody. Thank you for supporting the cause. It's like no, I don't want to know. I don't want to know.
Don't tell me.
Yeah. Hey, but you guys had a nice little Easter trip.
Yes, we did. We
Okay.
had what was going to be a very quiet weekend because as we all know, my visa is still, we don't really know what's going on with that. And Dylan's is wrapped up in all of this. So it's like we can't go. We had friends that were going to Spain or like, sunny destinations. And I'm like, you're British.
Yeah.
But we were able to, it ended up being a super busy weekend. We had a friend who lives in Denmark, came up and they spent the night. And then the next day, Hinata and Dylan went with another friend to the Tom Tits experiment.
Yep.
Like towards Södertälje, something like that.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then the following day, we went to, as I butcher this name, Kolmåren.
Kolmåren. That was really good. That was really, really good. Yeah.
Which is basically like Sweden's version of Disney. But
Isn't
it's
it
a
like
zoo.
a safari park?
Well, it's a zoo. But then there's like different areas. So one area is Tigerland. So it's like where the big area of all the tigers are staying. And one area is Bamse's World, which is this cartoon bear from, I don't know, the 70s? Yeah. It's got to be something like the 70s. Like he's got
could
like
be
super
60s.
strength.
Could be 60s.
Yeah. Could be.
Mm-hmm.
But like there's like little Disney-esque rides and all that kind of stuff, and everything's branded and all that. So that's all one area at the beginning. And then there's safari where you go in a gondola hanging above like all the dangerous animal cages.
Yeah.
So they give like, I don't know, it's got to be, there was an area that had, I saw at least 3 grizzly bears. They must have been the same family. Obviously, you can't have opposing families in the same area.
Right.
But like when we went over the lions, first of all, when you go past the giraffes, you're looking at them and like the giraffes, they're vegetarian. They're like, what do I want to do with a metal box going past my head? But I'm like, if they really wanted to mess with us, there's a couple that are tall enough to walk over here and stick their face right through the grate and be like, ooh, what you got in your purse?
Yeah. What you got in this shoe?
Yeah, exactly.
It's like,
And then you're going over the lions, and it's just like, man, what's the track record on this thing? Like, have any of these fallen off? Because I remember going to the Jersey Shore as a kid on summer vacation, and they would always have that weird roller coaster that was like flat and did like these super G turns, and those things were always falling off. People were dying every year, but we still went for some reason. And I'm just like, man, like if it falls off, it's like the latest Jurassic Park movie where you have to stay in the cage. And like hope that the lions can't put their paw through the middle, because they
haven't learned that trick yet.
They're pretty big, man. They're pretty big, not gonna lie. But yeah, it was super cool. Dylan had a load of fun. And then we bought the package. So you buy the pass to the zoo, and then you can stay at the hotel around the corner overnight. And if you want, you can go back to the zoo again the next day if like you missed any stuff or whatever.
Sure.
Which is probably better if the kids are a little bit bigger, because there's like roller coasters and rides, and if you're waiting in line for the rides, and you're gonna miss some stuff the first day. But we kind of did everything that Dylan was going to be able to do. So like we spent the day at the hotel, and I was so surprised. Like you figure this is like a kid's activity.
Yeah.
And everyone going into the hotel that evening, there's like at least one kid involved. They all bought the same package because there's breakfast included and all that stuff. So it's like perfect to just like spend the full day, stay down there, and then worry about coming back up the next day. Yeah. So we walk in there, and the first thing when we step through the front doors, I'm like, this is like a boutique design hotel. It's scent branded. Like it has a smell. Like I know these tricks of like
Yeah.
You would think it would be like maybe not a luxury hotel, but a upper end hotel. And I'm like,
Okay.
there's kids everywhere. Like, it was so weird. It was so quintessentially Swedish. Like, all these design pieces of furniture and like little elements. And then, then there in the basement, there's like this giant water park. And you're like, okay, I get it.
Right.
But you can still like book a massage and like a proper like bathhouse massage kind of thing. But then like next to where you go to the counter to book those kind of services, there's the swim diapers in all of the different sizes. I'm like, this is so weird. And it's up on a hill, a rock cliff overlooking this beautiful, huge lake. Yeah. So you're like, whoever built this did not envision this future for it, clearly.
No. Yeah. Hey, how did you take the train and then like the bus?
So we had a friend who has a car. See,
a friend who has a friend who has a...
Yes. In Miami, it's famous for like, people think, oh, there's so much water, we should get a boat. No, never own the boat. Unless you're my friend, then definitely buy the boat, because I want the friend who owns the boat. I want to like go out there, couple weekends a year. I don't want to pay for the maintenance. I'll throw in money for gas and bring the booze and all that, but I don't need
You want to jump off the boat at the end of the ride and then just walk to your car. You don't want to have to start wiping and cleaning and
no. Maintaining that engine? No, absolutely not.
No.
So here in Sweden, it's like, who's the friend that owns the car? So we had a friend that like had some availability. So they drove us down to the resort, and then the zoo and the hotel. And then we did the public transport thing coming back today.
Okay.
But what I didn't realize was we were going to have to take an SJ train, which is like the big train. That's out of system. That's like countrywide train. So it's like in the U.S. getting an Amtrak. And you have to like pre-book your seats.
Right.
So what we didn't realize, we thought, oh, we'll just like, I'm trying to do it at breakfast because I'm like, because the day after the zoo, you're like, just like dead tired. Like after Disney, you're just like, I can't think anymore. Like my brain is not functioning. I'm going to stop breathing at any point because my brain is just mushy gray matter,
Right. Yes.
So this morning at breakfast, I'm like popping 2 cups of coffee and I'm like, okay, now we got to get it done now. And Dylan's like, Dad, car. I'm like, Dad, no car. Dad has to focus or we're never going home. He's like, okay, we don't go home. Bull.
Yeah, he's more than happy to stay.
Wait, that was a bad suggestion.
Right.
So I'm like trying to like hold him away with a foot, get out of here. And then trying to figure out what train or bus or whatever we're going to go back on. So I booked, I was like, well, we're going to go upstairs, check out, and then we can just spend the day. And they've got like 3-4 pools and all this stuff. And they have a pool bar. So you can have like plastic cups with your beer, whatever, and like this beautiful view. Let's get the train back to Stockholm at 4:30. Dylan will last. It'll be great. And then we're downstairs in the pool after breakfast, and this guy comes down. And he's like, yeah, so it's 11 o'clock. We're closing the facilities because it's checkout time.
Right.
I'm like, oh, you're too good to be true. And everyone down there had the same idea. Everyone was just like, oh, we did the zoo yesterday. Now we're going to chill, enjoy the hotel. We've already checked out. We have our system, have our dry clothes and, all that stuff. And, oh, that was brutal. So then it was like, I've already bought these 45 euros worth of tickets. But that's at 4:30, and I'm like, ain't no way we're gonna keep this boy engaged that long. So we took the bus from the hotel, at least we took the bus into Norrköping. Which was interesting because as we're arriving, I'm looking at my phone of like old emails from the past 24 hours of blur, and there's a notice from the U.S. Embassy saying, please stay away from Linköping and Norrköping because of riots in the area.
Exactly.
And I'm like, what?
Protests and riots and
Yes. I'm like, what? But then we get there and no one's around. I'm like, oh, that is such a Swedish riot protest. Now the next day, there's nothing. Like, it looks like the city has been deserted for the past 6 months.
Yeah.
And it's Easter Monday, so like we got there at I don't know, 1:00, and we're like looking for like it was beautiful today out there, at least. It was sunny and like 15, 18 Celsius, and we're like, yeah, where's a place that we can get, I don't know, like burgers and French fries and have a beer on a terrace, or like a glass of rosé, something to like, now it's spring, so how do we enjoy this last day of the holiday? And of course, everything is like, oh, we're closing at 1:30. And I'm like, oh, come on, man. What is this?
Yeah.
Barcelona.
Yeah, what a killjoy. What a
come
killjoy.
on now. Yeah. So what did we do? We got off the bus at the central station of Norrköping. We debated with the person at the counter of Espresso House for a while, and then we just got some sandwiches and went to the park across the street.
Okay.
So we still got to enjoy the sun at least, but it was like, come on, man. That's like pull the rug out from under you.
Yeah. I got a quick question for you, and I haven't had time to go in and check, but was today a holiday? Today was a red day, right?
Today is a red day.
Now,
Friday, for Good Friday, Saturday Easter, Sunday Easter, and then Easter Monday.
Yeah. And it's called Annandag Påsk. Annandag Påsk, which translates
to... Which is another day of Easter?
Another day of Easter. And what I'm trying to figure out is, how do you get a holiday that's you're adding a day. You're like, we had 3 really good days. Let's just add another holiday at the end, and we'll call it another day. We'll call it another day of Easter.
Well, of all the holidays too, like now, Easter is like spring is finally starting to arrive. Finally, there's still going to be another snow. We all know this. Just accept it. Don't fight it. We know it's going to happen. But it's like now the spring is finally arriving with Easter. So that's like, I get that you want all that time to celebrate Easter. But this is also a country with all the churches and we don't use them. So why pick a Christian holiday? Yeah. It's kind of like counterintuitive. Like, why not just add the days to midsummer?
Right. Exactly. Oh, yeah, but that might cause there's some health concerns or something. I don't know if a person's body could handle more midsummer festivities.
Well, you probably couldn't add any more red days because you need the liquor store to open up again, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that would kind of defeat the purpose.
Otherwise, you'd have to add a holiday the weekend before that's called Everybody Goes to Germany Day.
Potentially. I mean, that sounds like a good holiday. You know what? I am a big supporter and more than happy to add more holidays and days off. And people could call them what they want. I'd like some more days off.
Just make all the name days off, right?
How about another day Sunday? We'll just skip Monday. We'll just do like another day.
I mean, we already have Little Saturday, which is Wednesday, so why not make that another Saturday?
Ooh, I think that we are on to something.
I think we have a new business concept.
We got it. We're going to get this through.
All right, everyone, that will do it for this week's episode. But before you go, please be sure, if you haven't already, go into wherever you're listening to this podcast from. Give us a like, a subscribe, give us that 5-star rating. And if you've already done that, let's maybe make a new profile and like and share us again. And then, is there going to be a next episode? Is Rodney even going to make it back to Stockholm? I guess you'll have to find out on the next episode of 2 Guys, 3 Crowns.